This is Scott Manville, and you're watching the TV Writer Podcast.
Hosted by Gray Jones, the TV Writer Podcast is brought to you by Script Magazine and ScriptMag.com, the leading source for script writing information in print and on the web. This is Gray, and I'm here with Scott Manville, who is a former development executive and also the creator and founder of a really, really cool resource, the TV Writer's Vault, which sounds really cool. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great, Gray. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I really, really appreciate this for a number of reasons, because we've had a couple of people with previous histories in development. Pilar Alessandra comes to mind. But I think you've developed a really unique resource that I think people are going to want to hear about. Why don't we, even before we go any further, why don't you tell me what is the TV Writer's Vault in a nutshell?
Sure, I'd love to. The TV Writer's Vault is basically a sourcing tool for the TV industry, for producers and network executives to discover new material, new concepts for TV shows, new scripts, and ultimately new talent. So it's a database, which is an online marketplace where people with ideas for TV shows can pitch their concepts. Producers scout those concepts and projects, be it a format, idea, or script. They connect with that writer or creator. They make any deal if it's viable, and then they go on and produce the show. So it's become a really great venue for new writers and creators breaking into the industry.
That is really, really cool, especially because and I know a lot of the projects that I've seen in development there have been reality TV based.
Right.
And over the years, because I work in reality TV, I've had so many people come to me and say,
oh, yeah,
I've got a great idea, or I think I would be great on camera, or can you help me with this pitch? And there's been almost nothing in terms of resources, and they're totally
right.
clueless, because you've got these huge seminars and conferences on film, like feature writing.
Sure.
You've got a few that talk about TV, and almost nothing that talks about creating your own reality TV project. So what kind of resources do you have related to that?
Well, you're right when you describe that the path to success, or the path to getting a reality program or TV show produced is it really doesn't have a clear roadmap. I think we're in a new era with the internet connecting Hollywood to writers and idea people, and reality TV specifically is something where anybody can have a great idea, but then anybody, they don't understand the process of Hollywood, of the TV industry, how development executives work with producers, how producers sell to networks. So what I've done with the TV Writer's Vault is simply created a platform of exposure to screened executives and producers who will take an idea, take the project, package it, turn around and sell it to a network. And it's a pretty simple process compared to scripted projects. Now, with scripted projects, as you know, there's much more involvement of other writers and drafts and redrafts, and then you get the studio involved and all this stuff. Reality TV is a much quicker process, and that's what makes it fun too, because ultimately you're wanting to see things get on the air, you're wanting to see things get produced. So as confusing as the process of the TV industry can be in getting something sold and produced, reality TV it's a fast track for creators to break into the industry, if I'm going to make any point, and the TV Writer's Vault allows that. So, we get very excited when we have creative people with great ideas connecting with a producer, and that producer, and here's another little point I'll throw in. It's not always about selling that idea. It's about selling yourself and the way that you conceptualize and create projects, because many times, as other writers doing scripted series will understand from doing spec scripts, the producer is looking for talent. If the project doesn't totally work, they'll think, I love the way this person thinks. I love the way they conceptualize, and often will go on to collaborate or develop something else with them. So it's also a great resource for connecting.
Yeah. Well, and I think the incredible irony is that just like there's a massive number of people who are thinking of the next great reality TV series, all of the reality TV producers I know are constantly looking for new ideas.
the old adage of Hollywood being a closed door, it really doesn't exist anymore because of reality TV. Producers need ideas. They need new concepts. They may have a team of development executives, but those are only a handful of people with their brains and their resources to find stuff. So they have to reach out. They've got to get out there, connect with big thinkers, idea people, people with access to subjects and places and people that can translate into shows. So I understand what you're saying. And that's also what I discovered in working at Merv Griffin Entertainment. I saw that these producers, as closed off as they were to the outside, they were desperate for ideas. And that was what helped me understand that there must be some resource. We've got to create something so that the general public, people that aren't in the industry, can connect with them. And the first project that I sold from through Merv Griffin Entertainment was a project that was called in from a guy in Florida. Now, back then, we really didn't have any protocol or policy of not accepting unsolicited pitches and whatnot. It was all kind of new. And so we get this call, and I'm talking to this guy, has a great idea. And I said, well, fax it over. He faxes over a paragraph. I take it down the hall to Bob Kosberg, who had a deal with Griffin at the time, big film producer, but doing TV, still doing TV. Mm-hmm. He loved the idea. We ran it down the hall to Merv's office, got it approved, made a deal with this guy the next day, sold it the following day to Disney Buena Vista on the first pitch.
Oh, my goodness.
That was eye-opening to me. And also, I have to point out, when the deal was done and they're getting into making the pilot, two of the executives from ABC came over to our offices, had a little creative conference and everything, finished up, and we're walking down the long hallway from the Griffin offices to the Beverly Hilton Hotel for lunch. And one of the executives just kind of says, so how did you get this idea? Where'd it come from? And we said, some guy in Florida called up, had the idea. And her response was, I love when that happens.
Wow.
So it told me that even the big network executives, they want to promote it. They know it's out there. And so from that point forward, I knew I had to try and develop something that would become a source for new creators and writers, as well as the producers, to find new projects and get them running.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, for dramatic pilots, as you know, I mean, to go from idea / pitch to a produced pilot is over a year. Usually, the cycle
an arduous process. Yeah,
the cycle is like a lottery where it's like 1,000 to 1 odds of you actually getting it on the air.
Right.
But part of that is because it costs millions of dollars to make that pilot and for development. But reality TV is so cheap, there's so much less risk for these companies.
Absolutely. It's all about the risk. You said it, and the network is putting up money, and with reality TV, they can just pull the plug and reshoot stuff if they need. But with scripted projects, they're investing money up front before they even really have proof of concept. And so those are big choices to be made. It's a longer process. But I have to bring up, even today at the TV Writers Vault, we had an executive VP from FX Network register and scouting projects, scouting sitcoms, scouting 30-minute comedy series, concepts and scripts, drama series.
Wow.
So even though the process is a big one and it's a long road, they want new material and they want new talent. So I can only guess that they know the odds of finding something brilliant are few and far between, but they may find great talent to work with. So they're out there, they're looking.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of Daniel Knopf I had on the podcast. He was a creator of Carnival. And
wow.
How Carnival happened was he literally posted part of the script online, and there was a producer, I think, who basically just said to his assistant, just find me something. And so he went online looking to see what was out there and found part of this Carnival script and brought it to his boss.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, and this is the great thing about this industry. You're not going to find the car manufacturing industry or other industries that look to the public, that look to new talent to find material. Those are other industries that are very tight, controlled, closed off processes. So it's exciting to see when that happens. You can put stuff out there and get discovered. That's simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Well,
Yeah.
why don't we backtrack a little bit and talk a bit about how you got into the industry and your experience working at Merv Griffin? Because I think it does inform what you're doing now. So
Sure.
when you started out, what were you thinking about what you wanted to do?
I was a struggling writer. I started at the Strasberg Institute in theater doing acting and writing, and really found my love for writing and wanted to write screenplays, started doing it, and actually wanted to find the simplest job I could that would allow me the most free time to write.
Mm-hmm.
So took a job at the pool at the Beverly Hilton. Now, that was pretty cool during the summer. I mean, a lot of fun going on there. But I had the morning shift really early. I'd get out there at 6 o'clock, and oftentimes I would write on my shift,
Mm-hmm.
behind the towels and the cushions and everything. I'd have my little pad there, and didn't have a laptop yet. Those were like, just coming out, but wrote every day. And more importantly, shared it with people, and a lot of people that were there at the pool, at lunch, doing business in their offices nearby, you'd become friendly. You'd be helping them out at the pool, getting lunch for them, doing other things, and you start chit-chatting, and they want to know what you're doing, what
Mm-hmm.
your pursuits are, and you let them read your writing, and you get beat up, you get, blown off and everything, and they ultimately see, wait, here's a person that's really going after it, that's creating something tangible,
Mm-hmm.
and they like that. And so it took one person to pass my stuff on, and then ultimately ended up working for Merv's company as a driver, then a reader,
Wow.
then working as an assistant to 3 assistants. Those were very busy days. I mean, it seemed like working 24 hours doing 3 jobs at once.
Wow.
But once I was able to communicate with the producers, working with their assistants, they would see, oh, this guy knows how to look at concepts or picks things that are viable. That's where the connection's made. And then ultimately they want you to stick around because you make the process smoother. They don't have to sort through stuff. You can focus in on great stories and projects. And then it's fighting for it because there's a lot of competition. It was not an easy company to work in.
Mm-hmm.
But the benefit was he had a lot of different producers working there. So it wasn't just TV stuff. It was film producers coming in, people who've done huge projects, and you start seeing different styles of producing, of conceptualizing, different styles of pitching.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot. It was the greatest college to ever go to, and that was a real blessing. And as difficult as it was, I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Yeah. And you worked up pretty far. I mean, you became the head of TV development there.
Right, I was the one person, and that's you're kind of the hub of everything, and that's fun because you're the center of all the activity. You're working with 4 or 5 different producers and all the different projects you have with them. Then on the flip side, you're bringing in all the projects from the other people, bringing in projects below you and scouting stuff. So you're dealing with a lot of material, but you're learning a lot, and you're making great connections, and you're learning the shorthand, and you're learning how different producers think. So to me, that was the most fun, I think. And that's, also your head's on the chopping block, and you have to fight for projects. And more often than not, they don't go the distance. But that was a great spot for me to make good connections, get people to know my work, and then ultimately figure out what I really wanted to do, which was creating something for everyday people with great ideas to connect with producers.
Very, very cool. So when you left Merv Griffin, what was your plan at the time?
Well, I was already starting to develop the website for TV Writers Vault and had a lot of confidence in it. I was also working on a few other projects that may or may not have turned into something. You're hoping and praying,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing you can count on for a paycheck. So, it does get to that point where when you have a new vision, when you have something that can be your own, you have to take that leap of faith. And so that's what I did, and it ended up working out, and haven't looked back.
Very, very cool. And since then, I mean, you've worked with a number of different companies. I'm speaking about the TV Writers Vault,
Right.
connecting ideas and projects. Why don't you tell me a little bit about maybe the first exciting steps in making that happen?
Well, starting out, it was crossing my fingers and hoping that producers would actually use the database to scout material. And once they did, that was very exciting in itself. I always assumed, it'll probably be some, small producer or small independent company that may option something, and then I've got to promote that. And you're really trying to push the material you have and get the writers out there and promote it to the industry. And in the middle of all of that, I think it was a Sunday, I get an email, and it's the admin at the website telling me that there's an executive scouting and here's their activity and this is what's going on. And it was the senior VP of alternative programming at Fox TV Studios.
Wow.
And he was requesting contact with a writer. So I said, this is great. Wow, studio exec. Okay, let's see what happens. He was the first one to buy a project from the TV Writers Vault.
Wow.
So that was a big shot in the arm. And but more importantly, what it proved to me was that it doesn't matter who the producer is, what the company is. These are real people that need material. And here the studio executive was sitting around on a Sunday, probably having coffee, scouting stuff online.
Yeah. Well, and one great thing about online in general, I was browsing through your site, some of the success stories, and I mean there was one from here in Ontario, Canada. You talked about the guy from Florida who's selling a project. I mean, right. It seems like you don't necessarily have to be in LA to get something like this going.
That's true. That's exactly right. And you have people from all over the world pitching projects, and also projects being produced all over the world. Companies are all over the place. Buck Productions, which is the first to get our program on the air, mm-hmm. with Steve Santini from your neck of the woods up there.
Yeah.
They're based in Canada. They also have offices in New York. So it's no longer about being in Hollywood, in LA. The internet has made that happen, and it's really fun to see what happens and people getting shows on and how they're produced, and then watching their careers take off.
Very, very cool. And these projects are happening. I mean, you're a co-executive producer on a reality series that's going to pilot at A&E. Right. And there's other projects packaged there. You mentioned, I think that was Saw Dogs. Is that the one with Santini?
Yes.
Yeah. And,
Steve Santini was, he created and starred in Deals from the Dark Side. That was on A&E in Australia, UK TV, the Sci-Fi channel in the US here. But they were sold globally, which was kind of cool. But Saw Dogs, that aired on Discovery Channel, mm-hmm. and that was from a writer-creator, Mike Harris, who
Harris, yeah,
lives up in LA,
mm-hmm.
But had a connection with these incredible artists, these crazy, chainsaw sculptors up in the Northwest, and pitched it as a docu-style series, and they turned it into Saw Dogs, and it was first broadcast on Velocity, which is a kind of a substation or channel for Discovery, and that's kind of man-centric. They want macho, crazy, cool stuff, a lot of things about cars, so chainsaw sculpting right up their alley. But it did well there, and they ended up moving it to prime time on Discovery for about 13 episodes. But these are really fun things to see happen, because these are people that are very tenacious, and they believe in their concepts, and they're out there. And Steve Santini, he pitched dozens and dozens of concepts, all of them around subjects that he knew, and ultimately one connected. It took him a while. But that's also another great lesson. Pitch what you know. Tell stories about what you know, the world you live in, the things that you've experienced. And more often than not, those projects are more potent, more powerful than somebody just thinking of it and thinking, this must be good.
Very, very cool. Now, I noticed as I was browsing your site at tvwritersvault.com, there's quite a few resources that I wasn't necessarily expecting from the site. Tell me about some of the resources that are there.
Yes, we want to provide new writers and creators with a lot of resources to help them understand the process of creating, developing, and pitching. There's links to different fellowship programs, things that the networks promote for new writers. We have information on spec script writing, a lot of interviews with industry executives, which are important to read because you get it from the horse's mouth. You understand what they're looking for, how they look at things. So we do pride ourselves in providing valuable information for writers and creators to understand the process and improve their craft.
Great stuff. And so if somebody wanted to get started on TV Writers Vault, what would they do?
Well, it's pretty simple, but first you want to have a concept fleshed out. You want to write a pitch, a very detailed treatment of what that concept or format is. If you're pitching a reality series, just like other genres, you want to have a catchy, clever, cool title, a log line, which is the short pitch, 1 or 2 sentences that hits on the core of the concept, what we're seeing, who the people are involved, what the agenda is. That's the high concept pitch. And then a synopsis that breaks down what we're watching. And I say what we're watching because, and I want to point this out, and I'm guilty of this as well. When you're writing a pitch, especially with new writers, it's very easy to get caught up in trying to sell it, like justifying why this subject or this story is interesting, giving a lot of history, a lot of narrative, and all this expository information before even actually getting to what we're watching.
Right.
But when producers are reading that synopsis area, they want to see what it is right off the bat. They're smart. They get it. They know from the log line and the title probably what it is. They just want to see what we're watching. So you want a synopsis that hits all the beats of what's unfolding in the program, what we're potentially seeing, and make strong choices. This is where you can sell it. If you're pitching a docu-style series, you can't go back in time or say this is what happened in their life. You're proposing what will happen. So take advantage of that. Create compelling, very powerful scenario situations that we'll probably see with these people or that subject. So title, logline, synopsis, as simple as that. You register it. You will then be able to log into a members area where you see a project status report. When producers review your project, it's recorded there. You see the company, date, and time for your records. It's all in the database. You get email notifications of reviews. If they like your project and they want to talk to you about it, they click a button, they request contact with you. We exchange the information. You're connected with them. And that's pretty much the process there.
And are there samples on the site of the things that you mentioned, like the formats and that kind of thing?
Yes, there are. In the section for creating for television, there are a few different pages where they have templates, kind of some rough outlines of what a treatment looks like, what a pitch submission looks like, as I just described. So yeah, we like to try and make it simple for people, but it's also important to remember that there are no set rules, and often it depends on what your project is, what your story is, that will determine what the best format is for writing it as a pitch. So that's where you're...
sorry, can I just ask you, so from the writer's perspective or the prospective producer, how is money exchanged? Like where you're obviously connecting writer to company. Are you acting as a manager in that sense? Are you, how?
No. Yeah, this is something that we also like writers to understand. We don't take ownership in their project. Their project is 100% theirs. We have the listing fees that they pay, either a monthly fee or a discounted long-term fee for listing the project. And that's it. We don't take ownership at all. It's their project 100%. If they get a proposal from a producer, then they're negotiating with the production company for their involvement. They're letting go of the project so that company can sell it to a network. In terms of money that's exchanged, typically when a production company sells it to a network, there's a setup bonus. Once things go into production, then you're getting a per episode fee. A person who sells a concept for a series should get a created by credit, some form of producer credit, and per episode fees that can be between 2 and 4% of the locked budget per episode. Now, that budget has a great variance. It depends on what the content is, what the network is. It can be $100,000. It can be $1 million. It's all over the map, but you do it as a percentage. It's typically 2 to 4% per episode. And then also the writer-creator wants some involvement, some participation in the production company's licensing revenue. So as that production company sells it around the world, sells toys, figures, all kinds of different things in all different mediums, whether now known or hereafter devised, as the contract would say, you want a percentage of that as well. So that's pretty much the framework of a deal.
Very, very cool. And so there are writers getting their projects off the ground, and that is really, really, really exciting.
Yeah, we're excited too.
And so once people start with you, do you find people that are pitching 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different projects? You mentioned Steve Santini as an example.
Yeah, they pitch a lot of projects. I mean, you have people that will just pitch one project. That's what they've created. They're not really in it for a career, but they have a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have others who really make it their life and practice to create and pitch, and they can have dozens of projects. Steve Santini had dozens of projects, but each one, he put his signature on it. He really applied his intellect, his knowledge, his writing skills, and that's a lot of work. So people will build up an archive of projects, of concepts and scripts listed, and ultimately they hope that one connects. But yeah, it's all over the map. You get people with one idea or dozens and dozens.
Yeah. Well, and as long as you get that one, I mean, that's where the ball starts rolling. But
Right.
Another huge thing with reality TV is casting. It's
Sure.
almost, I mean, often when you find the right host, you'll look for a project to put that host into. That's how valuable the right host is. You
Absolutely.
actually worked with Ryan Seacrest on his very first show over at Merv Griffin, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So you also created castmyreality.com. Tell me about that site.
That site really focuses in on building shows around people. It is all about casting in docu-style reality series. I mean, you have every subject under the sun, but ultimately it comes down to what the subject is, who the people are involved, and that's casting. You have casting producers and producers looking for people, looking for new worlds to explore and build out as shows for TV. So that's a place where people can basically pitch their life. They can propose their business. They can propose their lifestyle, what they do, what they know, different subjects and arenas that are in their world as new TV programs. So it's similar to the TV Writers Vault, but they're pitching their own world or themselves, things that can translate into docu-style series for reality TV. Very,
very cool. And reality TV, massive market right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we see that. You know, being the TV Writers Vault, we have companies like Fox TV and FX networks like today looking for scripted projects, but it's hard to get around. The overwhelming majority of activity is reality TV. That's what's happening.
Yeah, and it's not slowing down.
No, but I should say it's still all about story.
Yeah.
So it does take great writers. I mean, you look at a producer and director of a reality TV program, and I'm talking about the good ones, not the, there's something for everybody, but it does come down to story. It's about casting, about focusing in on what that great thread of a storyline is, how to build that out, how to edit it. It still ultimately is about story, and that's the wonderful thing, and I think will always be a main staple of TV regardless of the genre. So that's what we hope to see continue.
Very, very cool. Well, actually, and interestingly, I don't think it happens as much in Hollywood, but here in Canada, there's a lot of writers that float between dramatic and reality.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it's wonderful that networks can benefit from a great storyteller, a great writer coming in, and if they're working in editing a story for reality TV, you know that they're going to understand and see the dimension in the characters, see the relationship dynamics, and know what to focus on, what not to focus on, to tell the story. It hopefully is a good thing.
Very, very cool. Well, your Twitter is at TV Writers Vault.
Yes.
Cool. And just to mention some of those websites we mentioned, tvwritersvault.com, scottmanville.com is another place people can go to get information about you and your projects.
Yes. Email me. I'm happy to answer questions. I love helping people understand the process and And I really appreciate having been on your program. It's a great source. TV Writer Chat is a good place to get a lot of information from the pros, and I was lucky to discover it recently.
Cool. And of course, the podcast site, tvwriterpodcast.com. And I do want to remind people there's a ton of links that you can dig into at tvwritersvault.com. Some cool information there. But yeah, before we close, is there any advice that you would give to just in general or something we didn't cover in this interview for people who want to break in, they want to get their project off the ground, or they have a great idea for a series?
I can say that when you face rejection, it's just someone helping you get closer to something that works. And ultimately, it does take only one right project. So the road may be long, but you've got to believe in the process. You've got to trust the process, commit to it, and know that ultimately you'll find one that connects.
Very cool. Well, that is a great place to end up. I do want to thank you so much for your time. I think this has been really, really insightful and helpful. And who knows? I'd love to hear stories of people who listened to this interview, got connected through your site, and got a project off the ground.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Cool. Okay. Well, thanks, Scott.
Thanks a lot, Gray. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye. Hosted by Gray Jones, the TV Writer Podcast is brought to you by Script Magazine and ScriptMag.com, the leading source for script writing information in print and on the web.